There are 6 common challenges you might face as a neurodivergent traveler when it comes to packing, and I've put together 10 solid recommendations to make packing and also repacking go more easily. The first challenge is overpacking versus underpacking. Overpacking isn't necessarily a bad thing in itself, except that when it's crowding out other things that you could be acquiring when you're traveling. The generic advice is to just make a list, but that in itself isn't very helpful. It's not foolproof. There's ways that you can make that list better. The next challenge is that last minute packing panic. So if you've been putting it off because it feels very overwhelming, well, that's a challenge. That's a problem. I don't think I need to spell it out. Last minute packing can lead to stress and overwhelm and meltdowns. The next challenge is not accounting for or anticipating sensory needs when you're away. Noise. I think I'm in Australia right now, and oftentimes there's birds going nuts in the tree over here. They're quiet at the moment, so let's hope. Every year in England, I would forget just how early the sun would come up in the summertime and, needed some kind of eye mask. People who've never been to really dry climates are often really surprised at how much their nose hurts or their sinuses hurt because the air is so dry. It can lead to things like nosebleeds. It's pretty uncomfortable. Whereas on the other hand, people who live in dry climates are always a little bit shocked at just how uncomfortable humidity can be. I guess what I'm trying to say is your packing needs to account for these different sensory sensitivities that you might be facing. A lot of the generic packing lists won't account for your sensory tools or specific needs, such as a fidget toy. The next challenge is around decision fatigue. It's actually pretty common to freeze and get overwhelmed when you're trying to decide what to pack. Because if you're not a minimalist, you have almost endless options. But again, I have a solution for that. But at the same time, the conventional, like minimalist packing doesn't work either. A lot of the neurotypical advice is to bring the most boring clothes you can think of because it goes with everything else, which is true. But at the same time, it's pretty boring. So if you don't dress like that normally, then I don't think you're going to want to dress like that when you're traveling. Okay, the next challenge is around choosing the wrong luggage. And if you're in a position where you have different types of luggage to choose from, that's cool. There's a few issues. First of all, it's estimating how much luggage you actually need to bring and how heavy it's going to be, whether you need to carry it yourself. And also, sometimes luggage just wears out over time. Just because you have this luggage doesn't mean you ought to be using it. It just may not be appropriate for the type of trip, or I don't know, maybe the zipper is broken. Either way, you don't want that. The last challenge seems like a minor one, but it's not having a designated packing spot. If you're just trying to pack with your suitcase in the middle of a bed or something, it can be very, very messy and overwhelming. Okay, let's talk about the 10 tips for packing. The first one is to try to simplify your clothing decisions. One of the ways to do that is having a uniform. And maybe your uniform is black trousers and black shorts with colorful tops. Or maybe your uniform is sundresses. Or maybe your uniform is leggings and a t-shirt. So having at least that basis of what you are most comfortable wearing is really useful because you can then pack around that. So prioritize those items. I would also remember to pack your downtime essentials. So that could be things like really comfy clothes, a book, maybe your favorite herbal tea, pack of cards, games, anything like that. The next tip is to actually anticipate if you're going to want to switch things up in the trip if you need that novelty. I have this one in, one out rule. So what that means is if I often will pack things with me that are kind of on their last legs, and then I know that I can safely discard them throughout the trip. The other thing is if you have some clothing that you like but maybe don't love, you could bring it with you and donate it along the way, and then you've created some space in your suitcase. I also like to buy clothing as a souvenir. I don't know, it's just a nice sort of practical thing that I can take with me, and I'll always have the memory of that. I mean, the worst souvenir was a blanket that I bought. I had never used that thing. Next tip is to make use of packing methods. There's several out there in YouTube land. The 5-4-3-2-1 method, the 3-day method, the 4x4 grid method, or there's a 3x3 method, which is actually kind of better because it's fewer decisions to make. And then you can repeat it, just tweaking the categories each time. So I'm going to make a separate video all about that, so I won't go into too much detail, but those are the packing methods that I would recommend. The next tip is to create a custom packing list that's just for you. I know that there's a lot of internet packing lists out there, but I suppose consider them a good place to start. But what you really, really want is to have your own. If you can, look for ones that lets you include visuals if you find that really helpful. And that can be a little bit less intimidating than just a long written list. This list as well becomes a reminder of what you need to repack. I really strongly recommend having some kind of reusable list, or at least a digital list, so that it can easily be referenced if you're on the go. When you're thinking about what to put on the list, think about what your day is going to be like when you're traveling. I guess that's what the 3-day method is a little bit like. I actually broke down the 5 different ways you could get a reusable packing list, and it kind of depends on your comfort with technology, and I'll make the link available. Honestly, the solution I use is the Microsoft To-Do app. It's the only Microsoft product I use, but it's so good. It syncs across my devices, and it makes this really pleasing noise when you tick something off the list. It's also searchable, and I can move things from one list to another. So I basically use it for a lot of things, including grocery shopping and stuff like that. The next tip is to create a DPZ, which is a designated packing zone. I guess it could be a DPA, packing area. This is just keeping everything that you're packing for your trip in one area. And this could be the end of a table. I recently got to take over a laundry room for a day, which was perfect. Jessica from How to ADHD calls this a launch pad. So it's the same concept. Basically, it's a fun spot, and it needs to be easily accessible so you can drop things off, pick things up. And also, if you have like a basket or a bin that you can use to take around the house, if you want to just do a sweep and put those in for your packing, that can actually help a lot rather than one at a time as you think of it. And it's up to you if you're like pre-packing, just you can dump it in, or you can try to find it a home within the luggage. That's, I would probably just dump it in personally at that point. The next tip is to have a system of packing cubes or some kind of container. There's a couple reasons for this. One is that packing containers keep everything that you're bringing with you sort of organized. So you can say, this is a packing category. Some people do packing cubes by outfits. Some people do packing cubes by category. So maybe you have all of your socks and underwear in one and t-shirts in another. Just whatever system works best for you. I also have another rule, which is I don't only travel with clean clothes. I think that's unrealistic. I actually have a separate bag for my semi-clean clothes. Other good thing about the packing cubes is they're kind of a useful like for capacity measurement. If you do feel like you need to pack with only clean clothes, you could set it up so that you know that once this packing cube is full, that means no more t-shirts. My toiletries are in a separate organizer. I have my electronics also in a packing cube. Visually, having several organizers cuts down on that cognitive overload when I'm trying to pack. I can just sort of see that I have all of these cubes or containers or organizers all in one spot. Yeah, and it's pretty easy to tell when there's a hole missing, and so I'm like, oh, I better go find that. So just a side pivot here. There's this whole thing about folding versus rolling. Honestly, whatever works for you. I cannot be bothered with that type of folding where everything, the KonMari method, where everything will stand up on its own. Like, it looks really cool, but that's not for me. Maybe it is for you. What's nice about that approach, though, is you can see everything. On the other hand, if you're rolling your clothes, it kind of achieves the same thing, sort of. There might be like rolls a couple layers deep. But I also sometimes I just do some folding, and that means it's faster. I just fold the clothes to fit the shape of the container and try to build it up so it's even. I actually do find the rolling and fitting them in the container, it is quite a soothing project. So I don't know. Let me know what you prefer in the comments below. The next tip is to test pack your luggage ahead of time if you can. And that means that you have a sense early on if you've got too much stuff. And also you can weigh everything. You can practice picking it up, putting it in the overhead, the fake overhead. You can I don't know, carry it up and down the stairs. Like, just get a feel for what you're going to be dealing with. And that might help you make some more decisions if you want to take some things out. I don't know. I think that's time well spent. If you have different suitcases to choose from, I would always pick the slightly larger one because there's a good chance there's going to be some last minute things that go in. And also, you might pick up some things at your destination and might not get rid of some things at the same time. So that's my opinion. One additional note, definitely have a Bluetooth tracker in your suitcases, in each of your bags if you can. It's just, you just never know. It's could be the difference between getting your bag back or not, and just in case. I would also recommend making your luggage stand out a little bit. So that could be like people tie a ribbon on, or there's a strap that goes around it. I have luggage that's like a dark green color, and it's just different enough from like a sea of black that I can kind of tell what it is. I also have, there's a couple old stickers on it that's nice and bright. So yeah, I like that. It makes it easier to spot it on the carousel. Packing early is you can pack in small increments, so you never have to just get completely overwhelmed. Just tell yourself, I don't know, maybe work backwards from a deadline and say, today I'm just going to pack toiletries. And then another day you're just going to pack and worry about, I don't know, shoes, maybe socks. Shoes and socks. You could even Pomodoro that. If you have ADHD, there's a good chance that you work better with the deadline. So give yourself a deadline. I definitely do. Sometimes I give myself multiple deadlines. The deadline should be the day before because honestly, the day of, there's always going to be some last minute shenanigans. So my next tip is to pre-pack your sensory toolkit. Anything that you need to stay comfortable. Earplugs, headphones, fidgets, your favorite snacks, something to smell to get rid of the, I don't know. I have found it helpful lately to cover up my nose because someone's perfume or men's cologne really strong. Also, depending on the airplane, they might be pumping through some stuff to, I don't know what it's doing, but it doesn't smell good. Also, at the airport, they use some weird ass industrial cleaners that don't make my eyes and my sinuses very happy. What you could do is have all of these essentials in a designated bag or some kind of pouch so that you always know where they are. Anyway, if you haven't seen it already, check out my video when I talk about the 16 items that you should choose for comfort when you travel. My last one is kind of a bonus one. It is about creating a checklist for when you depart. So that's either things that you need to repack and also last minute things you need to do when you leave your accommodation. Actually, it could also be making a list of things you need to do the day you leave your home, if you're assuming you're traveling from a home. I might move from a friend's house to an Airbnb to a cat sit back to a friend's house. That's pretty much my pattern. Sometimes a hotel. When I was leaving my house, it was always things like make sure I clear out the refrigerator of all the fresh food, either eat it up or freeze it, turning off appliances, unplugging things, making sure all the bills are paid. Essentially, you don't want to come home to some kind of bad situation or smelly situation. Maybe you want to put a lamp on a timer. When you're leaving your hotel or your destination, if you have that packing list, that electronic packing list that you can reuse, you can just refer to that to make sure you've got everything if you want. I know that when I'm leaving an Airbnb or a hotel, I also like to create a list of anything, including timing. So often I'll use my alarms on my phone, and that's kind of the list if I'm checking out of a hotel. Quickly recap. The common packing challenges are overpacking versus underpacking, last minute packing panics, sensory needs not being accounted for, packing freeze and decision fatigue, choosing the wrong luggage, and not having a dedicated packing spot. Packing tips are: number 1, simplify your clothing decisions by creating uniforms. Number 2, build in more novelty. Number 3, make use of packing methods. Number 4, customize a packing checklist that's just for you. Create a designated packing zone. Use packing cubes or other container systems. Do a test pack and check the size of your luggage. Start packing early in smaller increments if you want. Pre-pack a sensory toolkit. And the last one is to create checklists to help you leave your home and leave your destination with less stress. Definitely play around and tweak things to make sure they work for you. I'd love to hear your specific packing challenges, so please leave those in the comments below. Bye for now.